your freaks, your geeks, your Greeks, your party animals, your gangsters, your commuters, your residents, your students, your alums, your lawyers, your truckers, your calls, your tweets. And we'll give you rock, classic, indie, punk, alternative, easy, hard, raps, rhymes, mixes, and drops. We'll give you kick-ass music because we're WPSC 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio. Sound good?
WPSC FM 88.7, Wayne, New Jersey.
Part of the William Patterson Broadcast Network, Brave New Radio.
Straight from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center, here's your local forecast.
All right, we have moved up a notch. We're up to 37.7 degrees, working our way up to 60. Expected to be sunny high, and we're going to move tonight to a low of 38. Intervals and clouds of sunshine on tomorrow, high of 62, low of 40. Expect partly cloudy skies tomorrow night. And then on Monday, partly cloudy skies during the morning hours will give way to occasional showers in the afternoons, high of 62, low of 45. Tuesday, partly cloudy skies in the morning, up to a high of 64, a low of 42. Wednesday, sunny early, then becoming mostly cloudy later in the day, high of 69, low of 46. Expect to be partly cloudy on Wednesday night. Well, that is the weather brought to you right here by the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center. Well, I've been excited all week because when we put the triple header together, I knew it was going to be with some awe-inspiring guests, and all three of them have been just that. Even though my third guest has not opened his mouth, I know he's going to be. So I'm going to introduce him. You earlier in the show at the 6 o'clock hour, I had Denise Razonia. In the second hour, I had Dr. Verdicchio, as well as Kelly, Megan, and Paige. And now I have Mike A.Williams with me. And Mike is the one I didn't realize Mike had relocated to Atlanta, and he told me he's been down there since, what did you say, 2009? 2006. I see Mike up here all the time. I thought he was still here. So last week, if you recall, I had Vaughn McCoy on the air with me. And because I'm on my social media all the time in terms of the show, I saw where Mike had commented back. So I said, Mike, when can you come on the show? Because I knew he had just done a book as well. And he says, I'll be up there next week. And I was like, all right, let's do it next week. 100 companies in the financial services, insurance, and transportation and logistics industries. A mentor to many, Williams is a passionate supporter and participant in activities and programs aimed at developing youth and young professionals in the early stages of their life and careers. He has spent the last few years committed to helping the next group of future leaders, the aspiring young professionals. Mike A. Williams is an experienced senior information technology executive, Fortune 500 companies in the financial, insurance, and transportation logistics industries, a passionate developer and leader of talent. Williams has spent a good part of his career mentoring and advising aspiring young professionals. A proud native of Paterson, New Jersey, Williams discovered his desire to give back in 1997 when he opened up an internet cafe and began to provide free access to computers for disadvantaged youth. He taught them basic computer and internet skills. Because of his commitment to community, mentorship, and technology, Williams contributes his time, treasure, and talents to support local and national nonprofit organizations that align with his personal mission and values. Williams previously served on the boards of the Paterson YMCA, the Greater Paterson OIC, the Urban League of Bergen County, and the National Black Data Processing Associates, among others. He was the founder of the Paterson Technology Group, Incorporated, PTGI, a nonprofit organization which focused on youth technology and financial literacy skills development. Oh, is that needed? Williams was a founding member and president of Brothers of Paterson, Incorporated, whose primary mission was to help men within the Paterson, New Jersey community, but quickly became a full community-based organization supporting various community causes. Williams is recognized leader within the communities in which he lives, and he has been recognized by local, county, and state government officials for his work. He was previously recognized by a former employer and its board of directors for his community work by being the recipient of the Information Services Community Service Award, an award that recognized employees for their service to the communities in which they lived. Williams is a regular speaker, panelist, and workshop leader on topics covering leadership, technology, and diversity. A loving father and dedicated mentor, Williams' greatest accomplishment to date are the birth of his daughter and the legacy of leaders he has personally mentored and helped in some way, either to get promoted or move on to the next phase of their career. Currently residing in one of my favorite southern cities, Atlanta, Georgia, Williams loves what he does professionally. He is a national BDPA board member and an active member of associations. He enjoys spending time with his daughter, Michaela, and actively participating in community-based initiatives locally and back at home in Paterson, New Jersey. Welcome, Mike A. Williams.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, just like last week with Vaughn, this interview has been a long time coming. And I'll tell you why, because when Mike first dropped the book, I had emailed him and, saying, I want you to come on my show because I know he's a Paterson native. All of his work that we just read about, I'm aware of, and I wanted to have him on the show. So this is by divine providence. It was just the time for it to happen, and it took me forever to get Vaughn on here because he's another one that.
Yeah, Vaughn's busy too.
I also want people in the listening audience to know, because I said this last week with Vaughn, and I say it many times with a lot of my Paterson guests, particularly African-American males, because the prevailing perception, albeit wrong, is that nothing good comes out of Paterson, and particularly from African-American males.
Yes.
And that's just not true.
Yes.
The fact that you're sitting here, Vaughn was here last week, I'm here, Raheem Smallwood has been in here, there's been other brothers that I've brought in to show that, yes, despite the challenges and obstacles, there are those of us who do prevail.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to roll the clock back. First off, what kind of got you into the area that you're in? Because, we're talking African-American males. They think we can't do nothing but shoot basketball anyway.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I heard your previous interview, and you guys were talking about education. And I always tell people I have a backwards career. And because when I was in high school, I wouldn't say I was a rocket scientist. I kind of made it through. And quite frankly, I was one of the ones that realized that, at the time I wasn't ready for college. It wasn't that I didn't believe it and I wasn't ready. But at the same time, I wanted to be a productive member of society. So during the summer after I graduated in 1987, while everyone else was playing during the summer, 2 weeks after graduation, I went to a trade school. Used to be CPI. And then from there, 6 months after that, I got a job at UPS in IT, started at the very bottom. And it's been my career for the last 28 years. So moved up quickly and taken on a lot of senior roles and management. But that's what got me. I found something that I loved and got back into it. And I always say I have a backwards career because actually in the next couple of weeks here, 3 or 4 weeks, I'll actually receive my degree. I'll finish up my college degree. And it's funny because I handed you the shirt that said, a college degree is my next. That actually accounts for me as well. So I think that's important for folks to know because it's never too late, and I'm a testament to that.
All right, and you've heard Mike, you're hearing him speak, you're hearing him articulate. I used to always hate it when they said it. I'm like, well, what did you expect? Articulate. He has written a book called The Advantage Factor, 12 Things Every Aspiring Young Professional Should Know. And that's why he's on to talk about today. It is a practical and realistic guide targeted toward the ambition professionals in the early stages of their career. This book explores common topics like mentoring, networking, and leadership. The author covers the topics in a unique way that makes reading the book worthwhile. And so is this about your life story or your experiences, or how did the book come together?
Yeah, so the book came together. As I said, I mentor a lot of folks. And what was interesting is a few of my mentors, they encouraged me to write a book. Every time I go speak and I sit and talk to them, they're always saying, you should write a book. And I guess fortunately and unfortunately, I listened to them. I didn't realize just how much work it was to write a book. And, so it took me 2 years to do it because I wanted to do it right. And I want to make sure it comes across in my own voice. And, the topics that are covered are really about the hard lessons I learned in my professional career. And, these are things where when I sat down and thought about them, I said, I wish I would have knew all these things going into my profession. What would have the advantage I would have had over my peers would have been just amazing. So the book started out, and most people don't know, it started out as the turning point. Okay. And that was the original title because I used to do workshops and I did workshops on the turning point. But as I started reading the book, and I did like the first 4 chapters, and actually they were kind of all around. I numbered the chapters afterwards. But as I started reading the book, I said, man, I just wish I knew this stuff when I was much younger. So I changed the title to The Advantage Factor because it's really about sharing my experience in all these different things and really talking to the millennials. It's talking to the young professionals, what I call the aspiring young professionals or the AYPs. It's really telling them, here's the stuff that I learned. I'm going to give this to you because I didn't have it. So when we start talking about mentoring and how important that is, and I think that's very important, which is why it's the first chapter and actually the longest chapter in the book. Because I think there isn't one person, and I think Vaughn, if you have Vaughn in here, he'll tell you the same thing, but there's not one person that I know that's been successful that hasn't had a mentor. So I think it's very important.
It is extremely important. And it's just like mentor, coach. Many people use the word interchangeably.
Yeah.
But we always use the example that Tiger Woods at one point, and probably still is, the best golfer in the world. And yet Tiger has 4, 5, 6 different coaches. Yeah. I mean, it's just, he's the best, but he still has coaches and is coachable.
Yeah.
And to Mike's point, those of us who, no matter how good we think we are, we still need mentoring and coaching. So certainly now when we start getting to our kids who may not be the best, they need it more than even those of us who are seasoned or who have had mentoring. And that's why it is so important. I shared with Mike earlier, and I shared with you all last week when Vaughn was here. For the next 8 Saturdays, we're working with about 40 boys from my school on a Saturday morning from 9 to 12 to do just that. Each Saturday is a different topic: manhood, the importance of education, and on and on and on and on. Each week, different topic, different speaker. Matter of fact, really could have coordinated because I know you're heading off with the Delta sisters, but I had to stop in to talk to the boys because Mike is sharp, always dressed, always has a fine ride. Mike is one of these brothers that when we start doing initiatives in the city and we start needing finances, Mike's name always come up. That's what it's really about. So kind of share with me as you've gone through the years. I heard the bio, kind of like some of the kids you've had the opportunity to touch, or is it the Patterson community, or is it Atlanta too now that you're there? Or
yeah, it's interesting. I don't talk about this much, and it's always interesting. People is like, well, what do you do? And whether it's professionally, it's hard for me to explain what I do. It's one of those things, the cliche. I just do what I do, and it's interesting. So in Patterson, a lot of folks don't know, to your point, because it's not something you sit and you talk about. But a lot of folks that I do help know a lot of things that I do. So when you start thinking about all the things that are going on in Patterson, you think about some of the branding, some of the activities, whether it's Patterson Cares, you can go on with what Shaq Khan was doing when Shaq Khan went from the boot camp to IBF. So the logo and the branding, that was, my talking to him, and I actually donated the branding and the logo to him because he and I are very good friends. When you start talking about the IMBK with Vincent McDuffie, the logo and the branding, I'm behind that. When you talk about, last year's, the school conference that Kipper McDowell had, the parents conference, donated to that. We can go on and on and on where I donate a lot of money, time, and effort. You talk about what Bridget Eric is doing with her foundation for her niece. Help them start their nonprofit, help them actually outline their mission statement, but they're doing a lot of great work themselves to kick that off. So when you start looking across Patterson and a lot of things they're doing, and I can't forget the brothers because those really are my brothers and really contribute to them. But when you start looking across the things that are going on in Patterson, the fact is, when I think about it, there's a lot that I have my hand in or just a lending a hand. And, even after here, I'm going straight over to Patterson Cares to help them, with sandwiches and things like that before I head over to Kennedy High School for the Deltas. But it's really about, with me, is 3 things. It's always what I call the 3 T's. It's time, treasure, and talent. So time is spending the time, investing the time to help people out. Treasure is basically, I feel that, when you're able, you should donate to a cause. And then talent is talking about my knowledge, helping people do nonprofits, helping people do small business plans, all those things where I have a lot of talent and experience in. I help people do, but I help them do that behind the scenes because it's really not about me. It's about helping other people.
And see, when Mike says that, he's true. He does not go around bragging and boasting. He does not. But I do tell you, because I'm in enough organizations that whenever any type of initiative or project comes up, Mike's name come up. That's why I thought he was still here, because all the things that he just talked about, his name is in. He's in. And so I didn't even realize he had relocated, and he's up here so much that I thought Mike was still in the area. If you've just joined us, my guest is Mike A.Williams, and his book is The Advantage Factor. I'm going to share some information with you, but you all know what to do. You know the drill. Get on there. Get on them social media sites. I've been doing it while we sit here. Get on there and let them know Mike is on the air, and he is talking again. Last week, if you remember, in the 6 o'clock hour, I had Manuel Mukes from Houston, Texas. And his book was called Givers Are Getters. Also in the same last week, I had Vaughn McCoy on the air with me. And Vaughn was telling you how he's giving of his book, like almost 6,000 copies away. Not charging, giving them to the districts in Patterson. All right. Giving them away. That's a book that's worth whatever it's worth, but he's giving it away. And now you have Mike here that's coming along with this same message. So folks, by now, over the last 2 weeks, you should be getting this whole thing about, as he said, the 3 T's of being able to share your time, your treasure, and your talents, because that way you make life better for somebody else. And this is the crazy part about it, Mike. As we're making life better for somebody else, life get better for us.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's interesting. I believe that completely because, sometimes I feel guilty, and actually I posted on Facebook just before I came here that someone posted a picture. I was doing a workshop for the National BDPA, which is it was called a Black Digital Professionals Association. We changed the name a little bit. But it's really a organization that's really about educating IT professionals, and really it's an IT professional organization. And they posted a picture of me doing a workshop, and I posted on Facebook. It's like I said I feel guilty because it's just something that I love to do. And there's a guilty pleasure there, but I said I'm addicted. I said there's no rehabilitation program that's actually going to fix this because that's just what I do.
Absolutely.
And it's really, you got to have a passion for that because I really want to go back to the thing we talked about as far as mentor because it's very important. In my book, I differentiate one thing when it comes to mentorship. So there's a lot of people that can be deemed mentors. But in my book, I introduced the concept of a knowledge leader. Now, it doesn't mean that mentorship or a mentor goes away. In fact, mentors and mentorship skills are a huge part of what a knowledge leader is. But a knowledge leader, the difference between a mentor and a knowledge leader is the knowledge leader has the experience where he's succeeded and failed, but also has the passion to lead others and teach others how to lead. That's a big difference because a lot of mentors, they'll teach you and they'll coach you to where you are, but they don't coach and mentor you to learn how to lead because there's a huge difference between the two. And then also a lot of the mentors don't have the passion to actually coach and teach you to learn how to lead. So I introduced the concept of knowledge leaders because I think there's a difference between the two because there's a lot of folks that can be mentors. Very few people that can actually be knowledge leaders because they have to have the success and failure to actually be a knowledge leader.
And I'm going to share some information with the audience, but you said something to me that is critical and key. And I'm going to pick back up with that when we rejoin on the air. But those of you in the listening audience, you know what to do. I'm not even going to tell you. Get on all your social media sites and let them know that they need to be listening to this one as well.
The cow says,
I love you.
To a child, it's just something else to play with. Lock it up, because 1.7 million children in the U.S. are living with unlocked and loaded guns. Get involved at ceasefireusa.org.
In
50 feet, turn left. Why are you driving so slowly?
After a few drinks, I'm taking it slow.
Well, you're not fooling the cop behind you.
What?
Get ready to pay in 0.1 miles.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley on Brave New Radio.
All right, welcome back. We didn't go anywhere, and I trust you didn't either. I trust that you used your influence to have somebody tune in, because what Mike is talking about is so important for our communities. Everything, all the guests that I've had over the last couple of weeks is connected. Is about, because my guest in the 6 o'clock hour wrote a book called Be the Light. And that's what Mike is being. Mike is being the light to help others. And there was something he said right before we shared that information with you about the mentorship, about being able to talk about your failures. In other words, you have to be transparent, because a lot of times, and people do, I don't know why people try to come off with this perception that they're perfect. They've never failed. They've never done anything wrong. Nothing bad has ever happened to them. So therefore that gives me the qualifications to coach you.
Yeah.
When the truth of the matter is, the real link in the connection is when you can say, look, man, I tried this and it bombed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's very important. And it's funny, in my intro in the book, I talk about that. And I actually call out just what you said. I say that those folks who come across as if they've done everything right and they know everything, it's just not credible. And I talk about it, and I call that out specifically in the book. And I talk about some of my failures and talk about, where, I fell short. But the key is, and I say this all the time, failure is just you learning how to succeed. That's all it is. Because, it's key that you always try and don't worry about failure, because, fear is okay. But when you have doubt, that's entirely different. But if you have confidence in your ability, don't worry about failing. And I always say that, there's never been a day where doubts kick confidence butt. And there never will be. And you just got to have confidence. And when you fail, don't worry about it. Just learn from the experience. And if you look at anyone who's been a champion, whether it's Michael Jordan, Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali, you go on and on and on. They've all failed early on. Unless you're great at something, you're going to always fail. You're never going to be great walking out the door. You're never going to be great when you're born. It's a learning process. So I think that's key to your point, is that we talk about our failures, we talk about where we fell short, but we talk about how we actually learned from that experience and then moved on and achieved. And there's a lot of people in Patterson that can tell that story. You've had one on your show, but there's a lot of people, a lot of us, and thinking about just coming from Patterson.
No, exactly. Benji and so many other, Al Moody. I mean, I could name the list long and strong, who have exactly what you mentioned in terms of didn't always get it right, but they learned from whenever it didn't go right. Yeah. And sometimes that's the best learning. Now, young people out there, I'm not advocating that you go out there and do something stupid. Yeah. But we're talking about when you're putting your best forward and things just go wrong. Like, there are times when I'll come in here to the studio and the buttons are not set up right. And there are things that'll be going on here. That's whenever I learn, because at that point when I have to correct it, like, okay, now I know what to do when that happens. When something goes wrong, whenever you're trying to do things the right way, as Mike just said, that's where the learning comes in. Because the next time that happens to you, you know how to handle it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, talk to me a little bit about, because you were talking about it a couple of minutes ago, the difference between the mentor and the whole notion of mentoring, teaching about leadership. Okay. Distinguish the difference.
Yeah, so I talked about the difference between a mentor and a knowledge leader. So a mentor generally coaches you as to where you are. And they can actually, in some cases, they'll coach you and help you develop in terms of where you want to be. But when I differentiate between a mentor and a knowledge leader, mentorship is a large component of being a knowledge leader. But a knowledge leader is someone who's experienced, has the success, has the failures. But the key difference is It's someone who has the passion to teach others how to lead. You can mentor, but you're not teaching others how to lead. And you see it all the time. It's like you're teaching and coaching them, how to be good at what they're actually already doing. But you're not teaching them how to actually be good at what they really be good at in terms of where they need to go, whether they know it or not. But also, when you get there, how do you actually pass it and play it forward and actually teach someone else? So that's the key, because then you're building a future of leaders. Because that's at the end of the day, you should leave a legacy of leaders, and that's really key. And that's something I think is very important that sometimes gets overlooked, because we're thinking about the now. And I gave you T-shirts that says "Think Next." I'm always thinking about who's the next person. The millennials and the aspiring young professionals. To me, it's always about who's next and who can I teach and how do I leave a legacy of leaders. At the end of the day, that's all that really matters.
It is. As I was sitting here listening to you talk, my mind went back to Reverend Fred Lagarde. And one of the things we were talking one time, he shared with me something similar, and I'll have to paraphrase because I don't remember the exact quote. But it was dealing with that whole notion of leaders think because they may put whatever they put in place that they are great and they don't have to be concerned with them. But his notion was, you're not really an effective leader unless you've developed someone else to be a leader. Yes. And I'm paraphrasing it, but it's pretty much the same thing that you're saying, that the true test of a leader is how many people he's now developed or she's now developed to be a leader.
Absolutely. And actually, I want to go into the last chapter of my book, and most important, because this leadership thing is important to me. I talk about the notion, and I talk about you don't need a title to be a leader. And what I talk about is, there's what they call an assigned leader. And then there's a leader that basically is someone who's actually earned the title of a leader. Assigned leader is just like any other job. It's like you look around, next thing you know, you got a new boss. So, okay, by definition, he's your leader. But no one came to you and asked you, say, hey, you know what? You want this guy to be your leader. So he was assigned to you. But he becomes the respected leader, and really in the sense of the word, a leader, when he gains that and earns that respect, he or she. But there's a difference between leader and leadership. You can lead a choir, you can lead a classroom, but to provide leadership, that's completely different. Leadership, when you lead, you're basically saying you can show someone the way. When you provide leadership, you can show them the way, but you also know the way, and you teach and you coach and you develop. That's the difference between being a lead and being leading and being and providing leadership. But in order to get to provide leadership, you got to lead first. So one comes before the other, but ultimately you got to graduate into that portion where you provide leadership. Then you leave a legacy of leaders, and I think that's important.
Excellent points. Again, if you've just joined us, my guest is Mike A.Williams, and his book is The Advantage Factor. And again, I am so pleased to have all these local authors on my show, because my guest list has spanned the gambit. And over the last couple of weeks in particular, between Mike, between Vaughn, between Dr. Verdicchio and the 3 or 4 students that he had with him this morning, all of these are local authors that are putting their work out into the world. They're giving back. And that is such a wonderful thing. And particularly when I'm constantly referring to the African-American community or African-American males, is because we're so maligned that if you look in the news, if you look in the press, you would think the only thing African-American males know how to do is get shot. You would think the only thing African-American males know how to do is bounce a ball or run a touchdown, when that is nothing wrong with bouncing a ball and running a touchdown. But there's so much more beyond us.
Oh, I want to talk about that so much. You hit something that, I talk about a lot. It's great that we have, in Patterson, we have a lot of athletic talent. But to your point, a lot of times we kind of act like that's the only thing we have. And it's interesting because, quite frankly, there's a lot of folks who grew up in Patterson, done a lot of things outside of Patterson, and whether it be corporate America or elsewhere, and we don't even talk about. So a good example, when I was in Patterson and I had recently left, I was working on this whole website blog, and Lamont Bowles was telling me about his sister, Donna Bowles. So here's Donna, who's senior VP of this $8 billion company, Beck and Dickinson, that make medical devices, manage, I don't know, about 40,000 people across the world, and she's responsible for, but no one talks about her. And actually, first time I heard about it was when I was writing an article about her. And those are the things that I just find interesting. Because, quite frankly, in Patterson, we kind of get in this cliquish thing, and we know what we know. Our sports figures come into town, and when we put them all over the place, okay, that's great. But we don't actually call out the folks who are in things that aren't sport. And a lot of them are doing a whole lot more, quite frankly, than the people that are in the sports.
Correct. And some of that, and I know in the school that I lead, I really try to make just as much ado about the academics as the athletics. Yeah. Because the schools are part and fault of that. We make big deals about our basketball teams and this, that, and the other. And then our kid that wins the spelling bee, we say very little about. And so that's what I'm saying. Patterson, that really, like I said, for some they don't even want to be in the limelight, but then at the same time the story needs to be shared.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting, because you don't talk about this, because sometimes even when I come back to Patterson and I sit with folks, and Vaughn may go through the same experience, I sit with folks and we talk, and I don't spend a lot of time talking about what I do, but sometimes comments people make, and I'm sitting there looking at them like, I sit across the world, and I sit across from CEOs, and you're telling me, I'm like, really? And it's like, you don't sit there and say anything, but you're just sitting there looking at them like, really? It's like, I advise CEOs on a regular basis of Fortune 500 companies, and you're questioning me on this or that. And you don't want to get into that, but it just goes to tell you their mindset, because they don't see it or they don't know it, and you're not in some clique. They just think you don't do anything, and you're not relevant. And I just sit there and I just shake my head like, really?
It is so true. He speaks the truth. Mike speaks the truth. And for those that, and see, again, this is where the relevancy of this thing comes. All these people that I've been talking to, they're giving back. They're trying to pull somebody else up or beyond to where we are. Yeah. And that's what we're doing. That's what the being the light thing is about. And they're not out here trumpeting and patting themselves on the back. They're doing what they do quietly. But the fact of the matter is we are there, and Mike is right. And again, I hate to keep harping on the African-American male thing, but it's true. Vaughn said it last week. I know when he was mistaken for the janitor, or I had a doctor on from San Antonio, Dr. Antonio Webb, and he talked about how when he walked into the room, he's a doctor, he's an orthopedic surgeon. They thought he was the nurse. I mean, and it's like, here you are talking about, I work with CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, and you all are coming at me as if it's sad. It really is. But at the same time, I'm happy and I'm thrilled that we are there. And believe it or not, Mike, we are making a difference. And the fact that you've put pen to paper, that you're actually given the advantage factor. So how'd you come? I mean, I know you said you switched titles. Yeah. It was something, and then you moved it to the advantage factor.
Yeah. So it was the turning point, because I used to do workshops on the turning point, and the turning point is really about major decisions you make in your life and career that had an impact on you personally or professionally. And I've had those. When I talk about personally, a lot of folks don't know. When they see me dressed up, they see me in a blazer or whatever. But, I have some challenges in my career. I hung around the wrong folks. We used to, people don't know when the Cheetahs was closed down, the folks who were in the fight when the Cheetahs closed down, I was one of the people. People don't know that, it's funny. I don't know if you know Mark Britt. It's funny. I do. I remember. To call us Eminem, and when you seen him, you seen me. And I actually ran into him. I haven't seen him in a long time. I ran into him as I was coming out here. The true story. And we just talked for a while because I was like, that looks like Mark Britt. So I stopped and talked, and immediately all these things started coming up in my mind. And I remember having this white shirt and all the Newark. Can you remember all the Newark and East Orange folks?
That's right. Cheetahs? Down on Ellison Street, Cheetahs.
I remember that night when, I went, the white shirt was all red. I mean, all red with all my blood. And it's like, so there's a lot of stuff that I've done, that, wasn't too happy for. I remember being face down in front of Eastside High School, face down in front of Eastside High School, spending the weekend in a holding cell. So a lot of folks don't know. It's like, look, it's like, if I really told my story, and what it really says is, and then I learned my lesson and said, hey, you know what? I'm doing this professional thing. I love my friends, but you know what? I got to back away, and you guys got to stay over here. So it tells the story that, hey, no matter what you've done up to this point and you think you screwed up, there's always a second chance. And we have a forgiving God where it basically says, you know what, I'm going to forgive you. You have another shot. And I'm fortunate because I decided at that moment when I was like 19, 20, this isn't for me. This is what I want to do, and that's the direction I'm going.
Absolutely. Now, when Mike says blaze, because he got on a bad blazer now. Somebody was teasing me about my shoes the other day. They said they was going to leave me shoeless. I'm about to leave Mike blazer he got on. He's one of these brothers that's into the clothing and the dress, and it just fits. It just looks. But I'm going to share some more information with you. Let somebody know that Mike's on the air for me for another 15, 20 minutes or so, and then I'll be out heading on down to work with another set of boys. But it is so crucial, the stuff that we're doing, and people need to see it. Our kids need to see Mike walking with that blazer on. They need to hear his story of cheetahs and being face down in East Side, and at the same time saying, but you got there. All right, they need that message. They need to hear that. They need to learn how to lead, because he's right. There's a difference between leading and leadership, and we need to be bringing somebody up behind us. Yes. I had somebody tell me one of my teachers, she's an advocate. She is very much into advocacy. And so she was telling me about, you're not one of those black people that think because you got out of, the poverty level, this, that, and the other, that you now turn around and blame other black people. I said, no, I'm not one of those. No, I'm not one of those blacks that turn around and blame other folk for being black. No, that's not the issue. But that's not, the goal is to help folks move along, to move forward, and to make their lives better for somebody else. And if we do that, that's the purpose we're placed here. We're not placed here just for us. Yeah. Mike can wear and go and do what he does because he is helping other people. He's doing it professionally, and he's doing it outside of the profession in terms of, you don't have to be me, but here are some things to help you be the best you can be. Absolutely. So I'm going to share this information with you, and then we'll come back for the last few minutes of the interview. The last few weeks, boy, I've been inspired leaving here.
Say, Dave, do you know that One Direction had the #1 stadium tour this year?
No.
Do you know that YouTube won't make the same licensing deal with the indie labels that it does with the majors?
They won't?
Do you know that Vivo only airs videos from Sony and Universal and does not censor any material?
Hey, Steve, how do you know all this stuff?
Because last semester I tuned into Music Biz 101 and more on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. on WPSC Brave New Radio and heard industry guests talk about all of this stuff.
That's that cool show from the Music and Entertainment Industry Management Department on campus that you can call in or tweet questions about the music biz, right?
It's the only one in the country, and it's a Stitcher Radio podcast as well.
Wow, so the show airs live
every Wednesday at 8 p.m.
I bet they have great guests lined up. I'd like to learn more about touring using social media and DIY stuff.
Just coincidentally, the semester show will include tour manager Dave Laurie, social media whiz Sean Rosenberg, and from Clifton, Sean and Rachel from Blue Raven Entertainment.
When's that show on again?
Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. live only on 88.7 WPSC Brave New Radio.
And it's free!
All right, my guest is Mike A.Williams. We're talking about the advantage factor, and while we were offline, he brought up another subject that was near and dear to my heart that is sorely missing in educational curricula, and that's this whole notion of financial literacy. I read Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, some years ago, and one of the things he points out in that book is he finds it odd and strange that in none of the school curriculums, the thing that we use and do the most, which is money, is not in the curriculum. It's not like in the lower grade, like in
company called Think Next, which really talks about building up our next crop of leaders and what we call the millennials. And I think that's important. But, really financial literacy has been a big passion for me, because if you go back to 2004 through 2006 when I was last here, we started an organization called Passion Technology Group. And we had three components. We had technology, we had leadership, and we had financial literacy. And we had a couple programs. I used to go around to the high schools. What's the school with Bob Gerasi? What is the school down on Spruce Street? What is that? I forget the school. But it was one of those schools that basically I used to always go there and to East Side and to Kennedy, and I used to talk to the juniors and seniors, and I used to talk to them about a program I started called Know the Score. Know the Score, focus on your credit score, focus on credit cards, and focus on, when you go off to college, because that's when they hit you. That's when you get introduced to these credit cards. But here's what you need to be prepared for. And I used to go and talk to these students about that. And then we had a program called You're the Boss. You're the Boss was a program that taught kids that it was ages 10 through 16 entrepreneurship skills. So, and what we did was after the end of the program, there was a competition. And it was great to see the kids show up with their parents in the audience. And they came in with their suits on and they did a presentation. We taught them skills in terms of reading income statements and reading balance sheets. And, you kind of had the concept of eliminate stand, and you broke that down as to how corporate America actually does its finances. And it was just great to see these kids come in. They got their presentation, they got their suit and tie on, and they're presenting. And we gave $500 to the winning business plan. But those are the things that I think that are very crucial and important, especially coming from an urban city and really a district. It's very important because when you start talking about the advantage factor, and a pun intended, you need that advantage factor, because the fact of the matter is, and I go over to the more affluent neighborhoods and I talk to folks there, they're way ahead. They're way ahead. They're talking about the stock market. They had computers long before we had computers.
Yes, indeed.
So when we start talking about that, we got to really start preparing our kids. And, the fact is, education is great and everyone should actually get one. But we got to realize, too, is that education doesn't really prepare you for the real world. It really doesn't, because it's a learning all over again. It just tells you that from all the basic principles, you understand basic math, all those things. But when you get into corporate America, you start getting introduced. If you don't have an accounting degree, you start getting introduced to things like accounting, process, all those things. And those are things that are not taught in school. Biology has no place in those places. So we got to prepare our youth at a very young age for those types of things, because when you start talking about financial accounting, it's all math. It's all math. It's an easy concept that you can integrate into math. I actually understood financial accounting before I understood math, believe it or not. Because I had to learn the financial aspects of the business, because in order for me to grow career-wise, those are the things I had to learn. And I learned those myself. But I had to learn. I had to actually go and teach myself algebra after the fact, because like I said earlier, going back to school, finishing up my degree, I had to teach myself algebra after the fact. But I knew to get paid and to have a better opportunity, I had to understand financial accounting, I had to understand business, right, all those different things.
And see, it's interesting you would bring that up in terms of, because I see you kind of like in that Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and all these brothers that they were in school and in college, but that's not necessarily what they needed to make their money.
Yeah.
I mean, they had the creativity and the genius enough to do the same thing like you're doing here. In terms of, I went back to get my degree just for the sake of, but he was already successful.
Well, yeah. It's interesting because it's really something that I personally want to do.
Exactly.
Because at this point in my career, it's not something I need to do. And it's interesting. Every job, I've changed job 3 times. And actually, I just told you I accepted an offer recently, a new job here with a large company, healthcare company. In every single job, to be honest with you, it always said bachelor degree required, preferably a master's. Every single job. But somehow...
Well, we talked about when the mics were off, too, about entrepreneurship. When I brought up Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, they were entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And, again, they had the family backing and a whole lot of other support early on. But still, to your point of entrepreneurship, for the most part, is not taught in schools.
Yeah.
And it ought to be.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It ought to be. So you're an entrepreneur.
Oh, yeah.
Talk a little bit about, there's a difference between being an entrepreneur and working for someone else. And I just need to let somebody in the door. But talk about that.
Yeah, it's really a difference because people think because you're an entrepreneur that somehow things are going to be easier. When you're an entrepreneur and you start off, you actually work a whole lot more for your own business, and really what you should. Being an entrepreneur, there's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of things you need to understand financially. But also you still have to balance being an entrepreneur off with giving as well. And I always say you always have to have that balance of giving and then also get income. When you become an author, quite frankly, you become an entrepreneur, whether you like to or not. But I like Will McCoy. I've actually given away a lot of my books as well, and actually donate all my proceeds from my book to charity. But the project I'm working on now, actually, we're looking to actually bring financial literacy and entrepreneurship programs to high schools. We're building a program we got a nonprofit piece, but we're building a program not just to actually just do the nonprofit piece where things are free, but we're building a program that's documented with a leader's guide and a student's guide where we can actually sell those to schools, where basically all they have to do is just take the program and run with it.
That is needed more than you know. Because believe me, in terms of the college thing, I am down with that. But I also know, college is not for everybody. Yeah. There's technical schools. Of course, there's the military. But the entrepreneurship piece is a piece that's often left out. Yeah. And yet, that's where, if you really want to get real in terms of making your money, that's where it's at.
That's where it's at. But since you talk about technical, but also, we talk about because we all agree, and I know definitely you agree because you've done it, that college is important. But we also got to tell our kids about the options, because we keep saying, if you don't go to college, you won't do it. You won't do anything. Well, it really is an option. And I don't know if you know, but last November I was invited to the White House. And I was invited to the White House with a bunch of other executives of Fortune 500 companies. And then also the founder of LinkedIn, the founder of Square. They were all there. We're all in this room together. And what we were talking about was these million jobs that they had in the technology field that were open. And they can't fill them. And they couldn't fill them because most of the people who were coders, they were actually being excluded at the door because they didn't have a college degree.
Right.
And what the White House was saying was, but they got coding skills. These jobs they got coding skills. They can code, and they're smart enough to code. And this is what these jobs are. So you have executives, and the White House CIO is from Google and all. So at least the advisors from Google, the technical advisor, and they're like, let's not exclude them. HR executive, let's not exclude them if it's for coding and they have the skill sets. HR folks, executives. Let's look at a program not to exclude them. So eventually that output from that meeting, I don't know if you were around, but in early March, the president announced a program called Tech Hire. That's where Tech Hire started, with all of us having that discussion in that room. Okay. And that's where they got all the feedback from. So now I think it's down to 500,000. But the key is, in STEM space, people coming out, there's jobs you could easily make over $100,000 in those jobs, no college degree. You can make a comfortable living in those jobs. $100,000, $150,000. I know because I've hired a lot, and a lot more on my team. They make a lot.
I tell you, the time has flown as always, because certainly when you have a passion about something, time is not a factor. It's not an issue. But we're down to the last 5 minutes. I have immensely enjoyed all of my conversations this morning. And Mike, I always give the last 5 minutes or so of the closing thoughts to the author in terms of promotion of the book, how they can get it, websites. You can say anything other than the dollar amount of the book. Mm-hmm. But in terms of book signings, where you're going to be, how they can get the advantage factor, all of that you can do now. I'm going to turn my mic off and you promote away.
Yeah, the book is, again, the book is really there to help the young professionals and really understand, from my perspective, some of the challenges I had in my career. And then hopefully it enables you to exceed and propel in your own professional career. The book can be found at thinknextforum.com. There's an electronic download option, and then there's also an option where it takes you to Amazon.com to purchase the book. I think especially young professionals, ages 20 to 30, where really it's targeted, but it's something in there for everyone. But I think the ages 20 to 30 will find a book very helpful because I'm of the opinion and the view that most of what we learn and who we actually are going to be when we grow up is defined between the ages of 20 to 30. One, because you start, you're getting out of college, you start your career, you basically take on a few jobs in between there. You find people at work that you gravitate to. They tell you some directional things. By the time you're 30, you've seen enough to decide, here's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And then also, here's what I want to be for the rest of my life. So I think those years are critical for young professionals because, I was in the same boat. By the time I was 30, I pretty much knew what I wanted to do. And in both ways, whether it was personal or professional. So the book is out there. Hopefully you guys find it helpful. But also recognize that, and I tell people this all the time, and actually one of the church says it on there, you got to realize that your next has no limits. It's really key. Your next has no limits, and that's really one message I want to convey to folks.
All right. Well, Mike, I thank you for stopping through. I know he has more stops throughout the day. I know the Delta Sisters is one of them. And what did you say, Kennedy?
Kennedy High School. At Kennedy High School. And then I'm going to Patterson Cares immediately after.
Patterson Care. That's the one. Patterson Care in between. I thank you for taking time to stop. The book is The Advantage Factor: 12 Things Every Young Professional Should Know. The author is Mike A. What's the A stand for?
Anthony.
Oh, okay. I'm Alan because I do say I'm Marc A. Medley. I'm Marc Allen Medley. All right, Mike Anthony Williams, Mike A. Williams. Thank you. And we're about to turn the mic over to Barry. But listening audience, you have been treated this morning to 3 outstanding guests in each hour of this Reading Circle triple header. But I'm going to leave you as I always do in parting. May you live as long as you want to, not want as long as you live. Live each day as if it were your last, because regardless of who we are or who we are not, it will be. So leave that legacy. Everything that we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks have been about leaving a legacy, giving to others, not being selfish and just thinking it's all about you, because it's not all about you. Regardless of how high you climb or how much money you make, it's not just about you. You need to be able to share it with others and bring somebody else along the way. And Mike brought out some key points. Get the book. 12 Things Every Aspiring Professional Should Know, The Advantage Factor. All right, Mike, we're going to be on our way. I'm going to turn these mics over, but thank you so much again.
Thank you.